7 seconds. That is the window you have been given before a single word you say actually matters. Before your name, before your job title, before your argument, before the clever thing you rehearsed in the mirror this morning. In those 7 seconds, a decision has already been made about you, and you were not consulted. By the time you open your mouth to explain yourself, the verdict is already sitting in the other person's mind, waiting for your words to either confirm it or fail to overturn it. This is not folklore. This is measurable behavioral science, and today you are going to see exactly how the trap is built, why your instincts are actively working against you inside it, and the precise counter-protocol that flips the entire equation before anyone realizes what happened. Here is the sentence that is going to upset a lot of people watching this, so say it with me before you get angry. You are not being judged by your qualifications. You are being judged by your posture, your pacing, and your eyes, and if you disagree with that, you have simply never had to survive a room where nobody owed you their attention. Sit with that for a moment, because the rest of this protocol only works once you accept it. Researchers who study what is called thin slicing have spent decades demonstrating something uncomfortable. When people are shown extremely brief clips of a stranger, sometimes only a few seconds long with no sound and no context, they form impressions about that stranger's confidence, competence, and even trustworthiness that are strikingly close to the impressions formed by people who spent much longer observing the same person. Nalini Ambadi's research on rapid judgment, sometimes summarized as the thin slicing effect, showed that human beings are wired to extract a huge amount of social information from a tiny slice of behavior, almost instantly and largely without conscious reasoning. Your brain does not wait for evidence. It runs a pattern match against every dominant and submissive human it has ever observed, and it hands you a verdict before your prefrontal cortex has even finished waking up. This is the trap. And most people walk directly into it, every single time, because their instincts were built for a different kind of danger. Think about what your body does the moment you feel small in a room. You round your shoulders inward, as if protecting your chest from something. You shrink your frame. You drop your chin slightly. You soften your voice at the end of sentences so they curl upward into something that sounds like a question even when it was supposed to be a statement. You explain before you are asked to explain. You apologize for taking up space before anyone has complained that you are taking up space. Every one of these behaviors feels, in the moment, like safety. It feels like making yourself unthreatening, likable, easy to deal with. And that is exactly the miscalculation. In the language of behavioral physics, you are broadcasting low status. And low status is read by the nervous system of everyone around you as an invitation. Not an invitation to like you, an invitation to test you, to interrupt you, to talk over you, to discount whatever you say next before you have even said it. Here is the second sentence designed to make the comment section explode, and I want you to actually think about it instead of reflexively rejecting it. Politeness, the way most people perform it, is not kindness. It is often a submission signal wearing a kindness costume, and the people who read status cues fluently can tell the difference immediately, even if they could never explain how they know. Let us walk through the specific errors, one at a time, because you need to see your own reflection here before you can correct it. The first error is the apologetic entrance. You walk into a room, a meeting, a negotiation, a first date, and the very first words out of your mouth are some version of "sorry I'm late," "sorry this is messy," "sorry to bother you." You think you are being considerate. What you are actually doing is handing over a status deposit before the interactions has even begun, an unearned payment made to nobody for a debt that does not exist. The second error is the darting eye. You glance at the other person, then away, then back, then away again, unable to hold contact for more than a heartbeat. Your instinct tells you sustained eye contact is aggressive or intrusive, so you protect the other person from it. In doing so, you signal exactly the opposite of what you intend. Steady, calm eye contact is one of the oldest and most consistently studied nonverbal dominance cues across primate behavior generally, and human status hierarchies specifically. Breaking it constantly, nervously, tells the room that you expect to lose whatever contest is happening, even before anyone realized a contest was happening at all. The third error is what I call the rising verbal fade, the tendency to let your sentences trail off into a mumble as you approach the point that actually matters. You will state the boring preamble at full volume and then swallow the actual request, the actual opinion, the actual boundary, as if you are hoping nobody quite catches it. People do catch it. They catch it every time. And what they catch is not the content of the sentence. It is the fact that you did not believe in the sentence enough to finish saying it. The fourth error is fidgeting under evaluation, the touching of your own face, your hair, your sleeve, the shifting of weight from foot to foot, the little defensive gestures that look, to a trained or even an untrained eye, exactly like what they are. A nervous system that has decided it is under threat and is quietly asking for the exit. None of these four errors are moral failures. They are default settings inherited from a much older part of the brain that once needed to look small in front of something that could actually kill it. The problem is that the modern room you are walking into, the interview, the client meeting, the family gathering where somebody always tries to test you, does not contain a predator. It contains another primate, running the exact same thin slicing calculation you are running, and whoever performs higher status signals in the first several seconds usually gets treated as though they earned something they may not have actually earned yet. That imbalance is the whole game, and it is winnable, deliberately, on purpose, starting today. Here is phase 1 of the counter protocol, and I want you to think of this less as acting and more as recalibrating a setting that was never actually set correctly in the first place. Phase 1 is the entrance reset. Before you walk into any room where you will be evaluated, you take one full breath, low into the stomach rather than shallow into the chest, and you drop your shoulders down and back without exaggerating it into a stiff military posture. You are not performing confidence like a costume. You are simply removing the tension that was broadcasting the opposite. Then you walk in at a pace slightly slower than your nervous system wants you to walk. Rushing reads as fluster. A measured pace, even by half a beat, reads as someone who was not worried about being late in the first place because their time is their own to manage. If a greeting is required, you say it plainly, without cushioning it in apology. Something as simple as, "Good to see you. Thank you for making time," works far better than any version of "sorry" to keep you waiting, because the first sentence out of your mouth becomes the frame everyone else uses to read the rest of the interaction. Phase 2 is what I call the anchor gaze, and this single adjustment alone will change how people respond to you faster than almost anything else on this list. When someone speaks to you, you hold eye contact through the entire sentence, not aggressively, not in a staring contest, simply steadily, the way someone who already respects themselves naturally does. When you speak, you allow yourself to glance away occasionally, because constant, unbroken eye contact while speaking can actually read as intense rather than confident, but you always return your gaze to finish your point directly at the other person's eyes. If you are naturally someone who avoids eye contact, practice this exact phrase while looking directly at someone in a low-stakes setting, a cashier, a coworker, anyone. I appreciate that, and thank you. Say it while holding the gaze the entire time. Your nervous system will resist it for the first several tries. That resistance is exactly the old, outdated threat response you are quietly retraining. This is also the point in the protocol where I have to say something plainly instead of dancing around it. Everything covered so far is available to anyone who is willing to actually practice it deliberately, rather than simply agreeing with it and closing the video. Most people watching this will nod along and change nothing because agreeing with a protocol feels almost as satisfying as running it, without any of the discomfort. If you actually want the full sequence, including the phases most people never get to because they stop paying close attention halfway through, staying subscribed to this channel means you keep a working copy of the mental armor instead of just admiring it once and forgetting the design. Consider this less of a request and more of a maintenance schedule for something you are going to need again the very next time somebody tries to read you in 7 seconds. Phase 3 is the vocal floor, and this is the piece almost nobody works on, even though it may be the loudest signal of all. Nervous speech rises in pitch and speeds up, especially at the end of sentences, especially when we are delivering a request or an opinion we secretly expect to be challenged. The counter protocol is to consciously let your pitch drop and your pace slow specifically at the end of your sentences, the exact spot where nervousness usually accelerates you. Practice this line out loud, slowly, letting your voice drop rather than lift as you finish it. I need this finished by Friday, and I trust you to handle it. Most people say a sentence like that and let the final words climb upward into a question, as if asking permission for their own request to exist. Let it fall instead. A falling tone at the end of a statement is read almost universally as certainty. A rising tone at the end of a statement is read as a question, even when you did not intend to ask one. And other people's nervous systems respond to that rising tone by unconsciously deciding your statement was optional. Phase 4 is boundary language without the apology scaffolding around it. This is not about being cold or rude, and if you take it that way, you have missed the actual mechanism. It is about removing unnecessary self-erasure from sentences that do not need it. Instead of, "Sorry, I don't think that's going to work for me. Is that okay?" you simply say, "That won't work for me. Let's find another option." Notice the sentence still leaves room for collaboration. It is not aggressive. It contains no attack. What it removes is the apology for having a boundary at all, and removing that single unnecessary payment changes how the entire sentence lands in another person's evaluation of your status. Now here is where most advice in this space quietly lies to you, and I am not going to do that. None of these 4 phases will make you universally liked. That was never the actual goal, and treating likability as the goal is precisely the trap that created the apologetic entrance and the darting eyes in the first place. The goal was always respect, which is a completely different currency, earned through consistent signals of self-assurance rather than through constant, exhausting attempts to be pleasant to absolutely everyone in the room. Some people, frankly, will respect you more the moment you stop performing smallness for them, and a smaller number of people, the ones who specifically benefited from your old settings, will not enjoy the change at all. That reaction is not evidence you did something wrong. It is evidence the recalibration is actually working. There is a deeper layer underneath everything covered so far, and it deserves its own honest mention rather than a passing footnote. None of this is about becoming a performance of dominance for its own sake, puffing yourself up, talking over people, treating every room like a competition to be won. That version of the protocol collapses quickly because people can sense manufactured aggression just as easily as they sense manufactured smallness, and manufactured aggression tends to read as insecurity wearing a louder costume. The actual target is neutral, grounded steadiness. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone because it isn't asking for permission to exist in the first place. That is the version of you that survives the 7-second window without even trying, because there is nothing performative left for anyone to detect and dismiss. One more piece of the mechanism deserves mention before we close this out completely, because it explains why some people seem to walk into every room already holding the frame. It is not because they are smarter or more accomplished than everyone else present. It is because somewhere along the way, often through nothing more dramatic than repeated practice under mild pressure, their nervous system stopped treating ordinary social evaluation as a survival-level threat. Once that shift happens, the postural corrections, the steady gaze, the falling vocal tone, none of it needs to be manufactured anymore because it becomes the resting state rather than a performance layered on top of a trembling one underneath. That is the actual finish line of this entire protocol, not becoming someone who is good at looking calm. Becoming someone who no longer needs to look calm, because the threat that used to justify all that noise simply is not there anymore. None of this requires you to become someone else. It requires you to stop broadcasting a threat response in situations that were never actually dangerous, and to let your outside finally catch up to whatever steadiness you already have on the inside. Keep this protocol close, because the 7-second window will show up again in the next interview, the next negotiation, the next room full of strangers running the exact same ancient calculation on you, whether you consent to it or not. Guard your composure the way you would guard anything else worth keeping. Do not let anyone else's rushed judgment write the story of who you are before you have even had the chance to speak. Hold the line, hold the gaze, keep the armor fastened, and never hand a stranger the string they think they can pull on you.